Hello, this is Maciej Mikos welcoming you to World Talks, where every word matters. Poland continues its arms purchases in South Korea. Polish Defense Minister Wladyslaw Kosiniak-Kamysz is hosting his counterpart Shin Won-sik to strengthen defense ties between the two countries, a cooperation which is gaining pace in the wake of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And to talk about it, we're joined by our first guest today, John Bason, an advisor to Polish ammunition production company WB Electronics. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks very much for having me on the program.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. Now, before we start our discussion, I'd love us to listen to Polish Defense Minister Wladyslaw Kosiniak-Kamysz.
We're Korea's ambassador in NATO. The relations between the alliance and Seoul are great. The Korean president will attend the NATO summit in Washington. Alongside Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, Korea is one of the most essential partners to NATO outside of the alliance. And we believe that the Koreans are well aware of our support. They know that our word carries considerable weight in the alliance.
I'd like you to address Polish defense minister's words. Why is Wladyslaw Kosiniak-Kamysz advocating so much for South Korea and NATO?
I don't think he's totally advocating for South Korea and NATO. I think he's advocating for a strong partnership between NATO and South Korea. And clearly that makes sense, right? NATO is aligned with countries outside of NATO, like South Korea, like Japan, like Australia. All of these countries have a strong commitment to democracy, to the rule of law. And we've taken that for granted for a long time, that this is safe and secure. And clearly, based on what we've seen in Ukraine, it's not. Tyranny is on the march. You can see that with the pictures that come through from the Far East with the tour that Vladimir Putin is currently doing. And we need to work together as NATO and selected countries in order to be able to counteract that. Korea's been a strong partner, South Korea's been a strong partner with Poland in terms of providing defense apparatus, in terms of supporting Poland. And I would support the defense minister with exactly what he's saying. We should work closely with South Korea. They're a very, very strong partner. They've got a strong defense sector. They've provided good products to Poland. And I think we want to build on that partnership as Poland. I think that's a sensible and smart thing to do. And of course, from a NATO perspective, it's a smart thing to bring in like-minded countries, of which you would have South Korea and others, as being great examples.
But why is it South Korea? Why not Japan or any other countries allied with NATO, which also have great defense industries?
I would say, well, let's take it back a step, right? Does Poland need particular armaments? Clearly it does. There's a threat building from Ukraine. The eastern front is potentially coming further westward, and Poland is on the front line of that. Obviously, previous government and the current government support the idea of increasing defence spending to 4% of GDP. That's a good thing. Poland clearly needs to defend itself. But what it needs is it needs products that are ready. And this is where South Korea comes in. Their armaments sector is able to produce products now. If you look at the European defence sector, for too long it's lagged behind and it hasn't been able to produce. Now it's playing catch up, but Poland can't wait. Poland needs products now. It needs systems now in order to be able to secure itself against potential Russian aggression. And so I think that is why there's a strong partnership with Korea, is that Korea's got good systems at a relatively good price, and also they can provide now. Their industry sector, because of the threat of the North Korea, is that they have the ability to produce en masse, and they're an example to Europe, actually. Europe should look to South Korea and to say that is what we need to do in order to be able to counter the threat that comes from Russia and potentially from others.
So I understand that there's a need of the moment, but how much is Poland spending on these arms deliveries from South Korea?
Well, obviously, Poland is spending a significant amount on these arms deliveries, but these systems are expensive. The similar systems that you would purchase from, say, Europe or from the US would also be expensive. They may be more expensive than what you're purchasing from Korea. So armaments cost money. Russia is currently spending close to 10% of GDP on armaments. So it's clear that the European Union, NATO, and Poland needs to try and match that in order to be able to put an adequate security buffer in order to ensure that Russian aggression doesn't continue. So I wouldn't get into exact numbers. You need to spend what you need to spend in order to be able to do these. And Korean armaments are of a good value relating to similar systems that can be acquired elsewhere.
But wouldn't it be wiser for Poland, of course, to have these weapons at least assembled in Poland, if not produced under the Korean license?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's something that Korean industry supports. But it takes time in order to be able to do that. One can't make a factory tomorrow. It takes time to do that. But I feel this is the part of the contract that has to be got right when you look at acquiring from Korea. Yes, you can acquire in the short term from Korea in order to give yourself the systems, the products, the vehicles that you need now. But you also need to look at what's the technology transfer programs that are going to be coming online in 3, 4, 5 years' time. And this is where Korean industry needs to engage with Polish industry in order to make sure that happens. Now, we see very positive steps, both at a government-to-government level, but also at an industry level, of collaborations between Korean companies and Polish companies. I work for WB Electronics. We've got very strong relationships with Korean companies looking to do TOT partnerships for ammunition, for rockets, for other different types of systems in order to make sure that Poland can build them. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely, Poland should be building this. But Poland doesn't have the capabilities to do that now, and they should work in partnership with Koreans in order to make sure that it happens. And that should be a crucial factor in any procurement that comes from Korea, that there must be an element of technology transfer that follows on from the initial orders.
So one more question about money. So Poland is buying the new weaponry on credit. And do you think it is a sensible thing to do, or could it somehow backfire in the future?
Well, I think it's always best to pay for something up front than to put it onto credits. But if you're going to pay for it up front, then of course you're going to have to raise that money in some way. Now that money is going to come from taxes, or that money is going to come from cuts in vital public services, things like benefits or the health system. Now, from what you can see in terms of what politicians are offering and who people are voting for, I don't think there's the appetite generally to have an increase in taxes or a cut in services. So therefore, the option of credit is something to look into. Now, Thomas Jefferson would tell you that you should be very careful as a government with loading debt onto future generations. But I would say there's an exception to that rule. An exception to that rule is when you've got the security of the country at threat, because it doesn't matter how much debt you've got if you don't have a country to hand on to the next generation. So I would consider this to be a serious situation. Poland must defend itself, and therefore taking credit is a good option in order to make sure that we're ready as soon as possible, and then we can make sure there is a country, a democratic, a law-abiding country that Poland currently is, that is there into the future and is safe from Russian aggression. But I would add one more thing here, which is I do believe that the Polish government is right and that the European Union does need to give more to Poland. Poland, by its geography, is on the front line, and Poland is spending a lot of money in order to defend itself. And in recent funding rounds from EU money, limited amounts of it went to Poland. In the asset funding for ammunition, for example, nothing went to Poland. And so clearly that needs to change. So I would agree that credit's good. I think the credit idea is a good one in order to be able to manage people's expectations in terms of how much money needs to be spent, but also to protect the country to allow us to hand it over to future generations. But I think there does need to be more coming from partners, NATO partners, European partners, who recognise Poland's crucial position in the defence of Europe and come and help Poland in order to help us, Poland, defend the country.
Lastly, I'd like to ask you about the Eurosatory defence industry fair in Paris, because apparently that's where we've reached you, right?
That's right. I'm in WB Electronics' stand,
right.
actually, at Eurosatory right now.
So the question would be about the visibility of Polish arms producers. Are they there, and are they products sought after?
There's a Polish pavilion here. WB, we have our own stand. I mean, from WB's perspective, we have many innovative products, and there is high demand for them. And interestingly, there's high demand from Korea. We talked about what Korea can do for Poland, but there's sections where Polish industry is leading. WB Electronics is the biggest producer of UAVs in Europe. This is a section where we clearly lead. There's a strong capabilities in AI in Poland. This is again an area where we're leading in defence. And I think it's not just about products coming to Poland, it's also about doing products in reverse. And there's lots of ideas where Polish products would go to Korea, for example. They would be Koreanized, and then we would start doing the opposite. But yes, there is strong demand. We need to focus on what are our core areas. And I think the key one is innovation. This is where the Polish defence sector has made big strides. And the next
So the
war
idea
will not
is
be the same as the last war.
colonize the Korean defense industry. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good idea, right?
John Bason, advisor to Polish ammunition production company WB Electronics, was our guest this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time.